Welcome to Built by a Boss. I'm your host, EVOLYN Brooks, journalist, award-winning producer, author, founder of In My Solitude LA. On this podcast, you'll hear unique origin stories, growth strategies, and meaningful insights from successful female founders, entrepreneurs, and pioneers who are creating groundbreaking businesses and careers with intention. My guest today is disrupting the cannabis industry. Getting a license without a huge amount of money these days is really difficult, but she's working on obtaining her fourth. This woman has 2 businesses, product lines and dispensaries around the country, and a personal delivery service in California. What's even more rare, she's a woman of color who started her business from scratch when she realized that if she could write license applications for others, she can do it for herself and community. Here's Amber Center. Enjoy. Hi, Amber.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. I have so much to talk to you about.
Okay. Yeah.
Jumping in, can you kind of walk us through how you got into the cannabis industry?
I've always been a fan of cannabis.
Right?
Been a big fan. And when I was younger, I started smoking weed when I was 18. Mm-hmm. And I had a lot of issues, health issues, growing up that I didn't really have any answers for. I noticed when I started smoking weed that I didn't have these issues anymore. Like they kind of just went away. So I always thought that cannabis was like my little miracle kind of thing, you know, and mitigated a lot of things that I was dealing with. So fast forward to 2013, I was diagnosed with lupus and Lyme disease. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of answered a lot of the questions and issues that I was dealing with when I was younger. I was presented with an opportunity to move to California to get into the cannabis industry. A friend that I had was a Facebook friend, but I'd never met him before. Mm-hmm. He owned an edibles business here in California, and he asked me if I wanted to work for him and move out there so that I could have access to medical cannabis.
Yeah.
And I was like, sure. And that's kind of how I got into the industry. I was working for an edibles company as a marketing and sales director because I do have a marketing and graphic design, creative director type of background.
So I actually was diagnosed with breast cancer in, I guess it was 2013. Mm. And my oncologist prescribed medical marijuana. And you know, I don't know what the experience would have been like if I had not, if I didn't have that. But I know when I listen to other people and they share their stories and they talk about, you know, I was sick and this and that, like literally I was traveling the world. I was working, you know what I mean? I think there was one time that I actually got sick during chemo. And I think that was because I was just really tired and my body was just like, all right, sit down somewhere. You know what I mean? There was a moment around 2014, 15, when the industry just exploded. All of a sudden, there were just dispensaries everywhere and then all kinds of products and things like that. So was that the reason why you decided, okay, let me start my own business?
I had always made edibles and things like that for my friends in the past. And I mean, they really liked them. They were pretty popular. And
what did you make? How did you make them? What were they?
Ice cream, brownies, banana bread.
Oh my God, I bet the banana bread was amazing.
It was. Banana bread was really good. It does a really good job of hiding any kind of cannabis flavors. So, you know, if someone is looking to make an edible that's very tasty, definitely look at a good banana nut bread recipe.
Okay, we digress. Okay, yeah, so starting your business.
I mean, I was working for this guy, you know, traveling all over the state. I put together a sales team in Southern California, and we opened up 50 accounts in 6 months. Wow. So we were really like moving and really hustling and grinding on our end.
And when you say 50 accounts, what do you mean when you say
dispensary accounts? So folks carrying the product.
Okay.
Product line. Yeah.
Now, were you growing it? What was
No.
that process?
Yes, they were vertically integrated companies. So they're growing all the cannabis, processing it into ice water hash, and then taking that ice water hash and some of that trim and making it into cannabis butter, and then taking the butter and cooking with it, making a number of different edibles. So sales were really good, but then the management was having some issues with the kitchen, having a really hard time kind of keeping production together, keeping the chefs and folks making the products happy. And business ended up failing because, I would just attribute it to not the best management, because you got to keep everybody happy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, if you're the customer, you want to get good banana bread every time.
Right. But mainly I'm talking about keeping your staff happy
for sure.
Like it's easy if you got a good salesperson to keep and you're pushing out product on time and it's consistent. Like,
Right.
it's easy to keep your customers happy, but keeping your staff happy, that's a whole different ball.
Right.
And so I thought, you know what, like I can do this. I can do this on my own. So I tried. I launched a small little edibles brand, ran it for probably like a good 6 to 10 months, and I failed.
What happened?
I didn't really understand what all the keys and things that were needed to run a business. It was my first time trying something like this. I didn't have enough support. You got to be able to scale. Like, sure, you can make prototypes and get a couple of accounts and keep those happy, but you have to be able to scale so that you can bring people on. And who wants to be doing all the work as a CEO all the time? Like, you got to be able to delegate tasks to folks so that you can continue to grow the business. Right. So this was my first time. I understood those things, but just didn't know how.
Right.
Failed at that, which was okay.
Well, you learned at that, actually.
Yeah, I learned quite a bit. Yes, very much. And so I took a job at a consulting firm, learning how to write winning applications for different types of cannabis businesses. Mm-hmm. And that's when I started, co-founded a nonprofit with 2 other women in the space, Supernova Women, which I'm still the executive director of. Worked at that consulting firm for a little while, and then I ended up going to a dispensary that a friend of mine had taken over, and she was the CEO and hired me as the COO. So I learned a lot about operations and managing a staff of 35, and really what it's like to run a very busy dispensary in West Oakland, which was a trip.
I can imagine. Yeah. And so when you said earlier, you said write applications. Were you writing applications and you later used that information to get a license, or did you start the business with the person that had the license? How did that work?
No, you're exactly right. What you said initially, I learned how to write applications and then ended up turning around and using that knowledge to get write my own applications for my own permits. Now I have 3 permits in the city of Oakland. I just won another RFP, request for proposal, here in Oakland. So I guess that's 4. Now I'm working on 2 other dispensary permits in San Francisco. So yeah, going through that process and working at that firm helped me out big time in being able to grow my own business.
Now, can you talk about how difficult it is to get that many permits? Because there aren't that many people of color in the industry, but to have that many permits. So talk about that process and what advice you would have or what challenges you had to overcome, because that's kind of the foundation if you want to own your own dispensary or, grow or whatever. You need to have that type of license. Am I correct?
Yes. So, there's lots of folks that want to open their own dispensary, have their own dispensary, and that's not necessarily if you're trying to make money in cannabis, like that's not the way. Okay. I think that dispensaries are very the flashy thing right now, because that's what people see. That's what people are most familiar with when going to buy cannabis or interacting with cannabis in the legal form, you know? They're going to go to the dispensary. So it's like, oh, if you're selling weed at a dispensary, you must make a lot of money. No, dispensaries are definitely retail,
Right.
you know, and retailers are typically not the ones holding the bag. It's the manufacturers, the ones with the products inside that are actually have the biggest margins. And that is because they can sell their product at all the dispensaries, you know? It's like I often ask people, like, listen, you know, you go to the liquor store, you want to own the liquor store or do you want to own the Patron on the shelf? Which one do you want to be the CEO of? I want to be the CEO of the Patron.
Right, because then you can sell the Patron everywhere.
Exactly.
What do you feel is the best way to make money right now? Is it creating the product that should go on the shelf? Is it in wellness? Is it CBD? Like, where is the opportunity?
I mean, cannabis is really tough right now. And I would say the opportunities are really small in there right now. Like, I'm not making a ton of money right now, and I have quite a few businesses. The reason for that is because we're getting taxed to death. You know, I mean, a lot of folks were kind of like in the beginning, a long time ago, when we were talking about legalizing cannabis, everyone said, oh, regulate it and tax it, regulate it and tax it to death. Like, that was not a good idea, because now we have a situation where cannabis is being taxed 40%.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's all your margins plus some, you know? So how are you going to make any money when you can't write off your cost of goods? You can't really write off anything, which is why you've got to be vertically integrated, really, in order to start to see some kind of a return. So, you know, you're going to want to not only grow your own cannabis if you have the means for that. There's so many cultivators here in California. That's not necessary. You don't really have to get into that right yet. So, you know, there's 6,000 growers currently licensed in California. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Mm-hmm. When we talk about manufacturers, folks actually making these branded products, there's less than 300.
Interesting.
Yes.
So that is the opportunity, the products.
It is. It is. It's a much higher barrier of entry as well. You know, the cost of compliance around cannabis is high. You think we're freaking manufacturing plutonium products, you know, with the amount of compliance and security that's required with the license. So, you know, for instance, we had a security system, just the cameras installed in my Oakland facility, and that was $20,000 just for the cameras. You know, and they require that you be able to store high definition video from each camera for up to 90 days. So that requires an expensive DVR system, that requires high resolution cameras, and then there's certain points around the facility where they're required. So it's just, things add up because of the cost of compliance. It is the barrier. You know, not just that, but the capital requirements, real estate requirements, because there are certain green zones that are permitted for cannabis activity. And then, of course, all of the knowledge that you need in order to be able to not make mistakes and pull the stuff off, you know, because mistakes are costly. All of that ends up being huge barriers of entry, in particular for communities of color.
And so what do you see as a step that needs to be taken to kind of move this in a different direction? Because Silicon Valley is pouring all kinds of money into cannabis. So where is that money going, and how could it be redirected to communities of color to make it easier to get in? Because somebody's making money off of cannabis, or they wouldn't, you know, it wouldn't be legalized. So, you know what I'm saying? So it's confusing.
I mean, the folks that are making money is like the government.
Okay.
Taxes, you know. Silicon Valley is not making money. They're losing. And I mean, you see the headlines every day. You hear about some big conglomerate either going out of business or laying off, you know, 500 people. Like, I mean, they are taking huge hits. So they're not the ones making money either. And they got into this treating it kind of like tech when it is definitely not tech. tech is not a tangible thing. It's not really an app is not something you can hold in your hands, where cannabis is. And cannabis has a shelf life and it goes bad, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So they're very different. And I feel like a lot of these really rich tech folks and tech startups got into cannabis thinking that they could treat it the same and come up with these ridiculous valuations. And now they're really losing, crashing and burning hard. And it's because, you got to run a really tight ship. You got to be you got to be savvy. You got to be smart, and you can't waste money. So that having a real heavy C-suite, paying all these people, $250K and up, like, that's not going to work. Not until you get the sales to support that. And most of them don't.
In terms of the sales, so you have kind of like this glorification of CBD right now versus THC. You have just regular folks that have smoked weed forever. And then you have people that are putting it in their bath oil. So who is the customer that you want now?
I think it's all of those folks, right? There's something for everyone. You got your budget smokers that don't want to spend a whole lot of money on the weed, just want to smoke I just want to be stoned, I just want to get high. There's plenty, there's that segment of folks. There's the segment of people that are the connoisseurs that are willing to spend $70, $75 on an eighth of cannabis. Mm-hmm. You got the folks that don't smoke at all, but really like edibles or like topicals, like those bath oils and things that you just mentioned. And then you got the folks that don't want to get high and want to do CBD and stick with CBD products like tinctures and those kinds of things. So it's kind of depending on what your business is and where you want to focus. Me, I have a number of different products, but my best selling product is a higher end cannabis. It's $55 for an eighth before tax, so out the door about $70. Mm-hmm. It's a land race African sativa, very clear-headed kind of high, creative high. So my customer is someone who appreciates cannabis, who lots of artists, people that are active, people that like to consume cannabis and then go do things. Mm-hmm. So that's my customer. But that's just my customer for this one brand, one house brand that we have. We have a few products and there's different customers for different products. We have a lower end brand that's more for a budget smoker that wants a lot of cannabis and doesn't want to spend a lot of money, So I think it depends on who you want to serve.
Right. And now you have two businesses. Well, you have Breeze Distro and then Shady Pines Box Club. Can you explain the difference between those two?
Yeah. So Breeze Distribution is our manufacturing and distribution arm. We manufacture products. We make pre-rolls. We package flower into jars, into bags. We make keef, which is an extract from trim that we're usually trimming up our buds, and then all of the leaf and shake that's left over, we're definitely not just going to toss it. Like, we process it and turn it into keef, and then we take that and then process it even further, and that is going to be used into edibles. So nothing goes to waste.
Right.
But so we manufacture products and then we distribute them to retailers, so licensed retailers. So delivery services as well as dispensaries, brick and mortar dispensaries. We also do a lot of white labeling for other different brands in the space. So companies that might be retailers that don't have the capacity to package their own flower or make their own pre-rolls. We do that on behalf of folks. Sell our products wholesale. And then for Shady Pines Box Club, that's our retail-facing business where we sell our products direct to the customer in the form of a subscription, a monthly subscription box.
That's genius.
Thank you. Thank you. So folks can get a curated box of our products, and we have a couple of other manufacturers that we partnered with, and you can get your box delivered to you. Some folks do it twice a month. Some people do it once a month. Some people just do one-offs, but yeah.
So is that just within the state of California? Because there are laws from different state to state. So how does that work?
Yes, it's only within the state of California.
And so you started this organization, Supernova. At what point did you decide you needed an activism arm of your business, so to speak?
I was working at this firm with a friend who I co-founded the organization with also. And we noticed that we had been working on all these licenses and applications for these big, well-funded businesses that were dominated by white men. Mm-hmm. At the time, we were working on the Maryland application, their first round of licensing. And it was 22 groups, and they were all white men.
Wow.
And my friend and I were having a discussion, and we're just like, wow, like we're taking our knowledge and helping these white folks get licenses. Why don't we take this information that we know and give it to our communities for free?
Light bulb moment.
Yes. So, and we saw what was happening. My friend who I co-founded the org with, Sunshine Lenshow, she's actually from Maryland. So this was particularly bothersome for her because she knows that Maryland is a very Black state and all of these licenses were going to white folks. And she was just really unsettled by this. And so we co-founded the organization. We put on our first event in January of 2016. We had a great turnout. There was over 100 people that showed up. Mm-hmm. And we had 2 panel discussions. It was really successful, so we just kept doing them.
And so with the organization, what is your goal in terms of it? Is it to educate people about cannabis, the industry, the social justice piece? Like, how would you like your organization to move the story forward in this industry?
The organization has 3 focuses. We are an organization of women of color that works to empower people of color to become self-sufficient shareholders in the cannabis industry. So we are supporting cannabis business owners that are people of color. And we do that through education, advocacy, and network building. So we advocate very heavily to lower barriers of entry for Black and brown folks and folks that have been affected by the war on drugs. And we do that through our advocacy reaches a number of different arenas. We worked very closely with the city of Oakland to develop the country's first social equity program. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like one of our big hallmark things that we've done. We worked with the city of San Francisco to establish their social equity program. We worked with the state of California and Senator Bradford's office to establish SB 1294, which is a grant program that issues monies to municipalities throughout the state of California that have social equity programs. So they're essentially funding the programs through the state.
Explain what social equity means in terms of cannabis, and before you go further, just so people understand what that's really about.
Yeah, sure. So social equity programs have been established to right the wrongs that have been done by the war on drugs. So in different municipalities, they do different things. In Oakland, what they did is there are 4 folks that have been affected by the war on drugs. So if you come from certain police beats that the city of Oakland deemed to be affected by the war on drugs, these places had higher arrest rates for cannabis than the rest of the city. Then you qualify if you lived there for 10 of the last 20 years. If you had a cannabis conviction coming out of Oakland, and then you have an income requirement that you have to meet. But there's different qualifiers in different places. These equity programs are now across the country. There's an equity program in Massachusetts as well as in Illinois. Colorado just established one a couple of weeks ago. I see the trend definitely continuing. So yeah, these programs were established to help folks so that it's kind of even the playing field, to give them a leg up so that they can compete. Because as we know, the cannabis industry was built on the backs of Black and brown folks.
Well, that I think is the thing that everybody is really trying to kind of figure out in this moment. And I think it brings us to this moment. You know, when we look at COVID-19, we look at Black and brown people that are disproportionately suffering. And it kind of ties in when you think about all of the areas in which we don't have access kind of coming to light, and ways in which we've contributed to systems that we were not paid for, disenfranchised along the way. So I think for some people, it's kind of like, well, how do you let people go that were sent to jail for these sentences? But then you have overcrowded jails and you have people that have marijuana convictions. This could be a great time to actually release some of those people that are in jail or in prison for marijuana sentences.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And a lot of these folks aren't being let out, which is tragedy. Can't let out the Michael Cohens and then leave the person who got caught with a pound at Rikers. You know, like, it's ridiculous what's happening.
So moving forward, what is the future of the cannabis industry? I see the drawbacks, I see the challenges that you're facing, but what is it that people can look to or think about in terms of where they may fit it and how? And I mean, you're continuing to push through, so you see a blue sky somewhere.
I do. And really, it's a matter of folks advocating to make it easier for us to operate in the space, because California did this very strange thing where in 2022, they kind of like will let the gates up and let a lot of big players come in. And the reason why I say that is because they had this law set into place where basically you could not cultivate on more than an acre of land. But after 2022, that rule goes away. And so we expect like the floodgates to come in and really big players come in and start working in the space. And I really see that when the bigger players come into the space, it's going to be easier to operate because they need to make money and they got the lobbying dollars to put people on it to get these laws and barriers lowered so that they can make their margins and make their money. I do think over time it's going to become easier to operate, in particular when federal legalization happens, but that's really when it's going to be tough for Black and brown folks because all the distribution channels will be sewed up by these bigger operators, and it's just going to be much harder for us. So I feel like we need advocates in the space, advocates like me, advocates like the Hood Incubator and Minority Cannabis Business Association, people that understand that it is going to be a tough road for Black and brown folks, and we need to carve out lanes and make sure that we have our inclusive supply chains and supply chains that will work for us, because they're definitely trying to set it up to where they won't. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty imperative that we make sure we carve out a lane for our own people and do it now before it's not necessarily going to be too late, but it just gets harder as time goes on because things become more established.
And you don't want to be in a position where we're just the consumers.
Right, exactly. And we're going to need some diversity on the shelves. You know, who wants to walk into the dispensaries and see the same old thing over and over again? I mean, that's how we see it. That's how it is currently. Really not it is at the dispensaries, but any store, you know, you walk into the grocery store, things are branded differently, but they're actually all the same company.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you walk into the convenience store, you go to the gas station and look in the soda aisle. It's all the same stuff. Like, we don't want this industry to be like all of those other industries. Like, we have a chance here to build this thing from the ground up, because that's what's happening right now. And it's really important that we have advocates making sure that our voices are heard and pushing our agendas forward, so that these systems don't get built without our representation.
And so how can people help you?
For consumers, make sure you're supporting our brands. Buy Black and brown brands. Ask for them at the dispensary. You know, ask how many social equity brands do you have on the shelf? How many Black brands do you have on the shelf? How many women brands do you have on the shelf? And if they can't tell you, then that's a problem. So really just advocate for us as consumers, you know, like ask for our products, demand that they're there. And if you don't think that enough are there and enough are around, then that means we need help getting us on the shelves, or at least even getting us to be producers. You know, most likely if they're not on the shelves, that means that your state, you either don't have a program set up for social equity, and that's really important. You know, demand that at your city council meetings. You know, that's where we started. Advocating for a social equity program. We were going to Oakland City Council meetings every week, sometimes twice a week, and bringing these big pie in the sky ideas. And we ended up being successful. So, you know, sometimes you've got to start at the ground level, and that's at your local government. And you can really get a lot done at the local government. And the local government can then turn around and put pressure on the state. And that's what happened in this case. And so, don't ever underestimate your power. Find your tribe. It could just be a couple of people. With us, it was 4 of us. And we ended up changing a national conversation.
That's amazing. Well, Amber, you are on Built by a Boss. I have 2 questions that I love to ask everyone at the end. You've got a lot going on in a day. You have 24 hours like Oprah. What are 2 to 3 things that you do every day that contribute to your success?
I remind myself of my values every morning when I wake up and look in the mirror. And that was something that a good friend of mine told me that I needed to do as I progressed and grew, and scaled myself, my businesses. Just remind yourself of what's important to you and what your values are, because they will be challenged. Another thing I do every day, I just remodeled my backyard, and I go out there and hang out with my plants. And when I say plants, I don't mean cannabis, but
yeah,
flowers, you know. I sit back there and I meditate. I listen to music. I talk to my mom every day. And I just take a few minutes to be by myself. I mean, I live by myself, but really be by myself and just enjoy my surroundings. And I have a serene space to do that. And I think that's really important for entrepreneurs as well, to find a nice serene space. And if you don't have one, you make one. Yeah.
And so, because this is called Built by a Boss, I love to hear your definition of a boss. What is a boss to you?
It's a great question. A boss is someone that's really owning their shit. And when I say owning it, I don't mean like, oh, you own your own company. I mean, you are owning your life. Mm-hmm. You know, you truly believe that you can create the world that you live in. And I think that's real boss shit. When you know and understand that you can do whatever you want to do, and you take steps to make it so. I feel like that's when you truly reached boss potential.
Wonderful. All right. I love it. So thank you so much. Tell everybody how they can get in touch with you, how follow you on Instagram, Twitter, reach your organization. How would you like us to find you?
Yeah, sure. So to To find out what's going on with Supernova, we've been hosting a bunch of webinars. We're doing webinars every month. You can find out more information on our Instagram at supernovawomen.com. Oh, at our Instagram is Supernova Women. Our website is supernovawomen.com. You can find out more about me through my website, amberecenter.com. You can also follow me on Instagram. It's me, Amber E. My businesses are breezedistro.com and also shadypinesboxclub.com if you are in California looking for a dank box of trees.
All right. Thank you so much, Amber.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoy the conversation. Amber is so chill, but she's killing it. And her deep understanding of the power of advocacy is something we can all learn from and incorporate into our toolbox, regardless of our line of work. So, if you're new to Built by a Boss, like this episode and found it valuable, please take a moment to leave a 5-star review and a comment. It really helps other people find us who might like the podcast. You can join our Built by a Boss Patreon community for as low as $1 a month and help us create more content like our Increase Your Side Income course on Teachable that's designed to help beginning entrepreneurs on their journey. You can follow us at Built by a Boss on Instagram and Facebook, and also visit me at inmysolitudela.com for well-being content that supports your mind, body, and spirit. As always, thanks for listening. I'm so grateful for you. Until next time, be kind, be brave, be better, be a boss.